Buen día a todos. Un placer estar aquí. Soy Alejandro Mayat, director del Centro de Entrepreneurship de la Universidad de San Andrés. Primero, un agradecimiento enorme a ARCAP, a Juan Giner y a nuestros amigos chilenos y uruguayos por esta invitación. Para mí es un honor y un placer estar aquí. Me dicen acá que he escrito mal Universidad de San Andrés. Es verdad. A ver si lo podemos corregir. Si no, a ver, lo tengo que corregir yo desde acá, creo. Ahí. Ahí fuimos bien. La tecnología nos ayudó. Bueno, para mí es un placer esta conversación. I will speak in English because Yigal is waiting in Israel to go live. So I want to present Mr. Yigal Erlich. Yigal is the founding father of the Israeli venture capital industry, and he's one of the most important and prominent figures in the Israeli tech arena in the past 15 years. It's a pleasure to have you here, Yigal. I don't know if he can go live now.
Yeah, good morning for you. It's my pleasure too.
Thank you, Yigal. Before we start, I want to let everybody know, I think that we have 1,000 people around from all Latin America here listening. So thank you for being here. I want to tell that we met with Yigal for the first time, I think 10 years ago, here in Argentina. Those times I was leading Endeavor Argentina, and we were doing a lot of things trying to build the local ecosystem, and we asked Yigal to come here. He took a plane and came to the desert, I think, because we didn't have almost anything in those times. And he helped a lot, and I think that trip was a kind of a vision, because after you came here, a lot of things started to happen. A lot of things have happened since then. The ecosystem has been built. The VC industry here and in other countries in Latin America are starting to grow. So we are now in a state that where we have to think, and that's why we are here, which are the main components of the ecosystem and what do we have to do to make it a great, as you have in Israel. So in this conversation, Yigal, I would like to start by asking you about the story. You are the father of the VC industry in Israel, and I would love you to tell us how it started. How did you do to create this Yosma that was the sparkle or the catalyzation of the industry? We will show some slides, okay, and you can tell us.
Okay.
Let me see if you can see it now. Yeah, it's okay?
Yes, it's for me, it's okay. Good. So, as you said, Alessandro, I started the business of venture capital, back in 1993. As a matter of fact, at that time, there was no venture capital in Israel, and I was in the government, the position of the chief scientist, where I funded hundreds of projects in companies. And I saw the need of a venture capital, and then the government decided to take initiative and build this industry. So the decision was to put $100 million by the government and create an investment company, which was called Yosma, Initiative in English. And the role of this company was simply to create the venture capital market in Israel, and it gave us the flexibility to do it the way we think is the best. So we thought at the time that the best way is to do it together with professional investors. We did not have them in Israel, so we were looking for them all over the world, mainly in the United States. Luckily enough, we found some companies like investment banks and others that were familiar with the venture capital industry. And we convinced them to come to Israel to make, together with us and with private investors, the new era of venture capital in Israel. So the way we did it, we just created funds, small funds. Each fund was about $20 million. We did it by convincing, as I said, the American partner to combine or to join an Israeli partner. And together, the three of us raised the $20 million minimum, which was needed for a venture capital fund at that time. The government, that I was the CEO of the Yozma Fund by the government, put 40% of the capital, and they had to put another 60%. In this way, we convinced about 10 partners to join with local partners, and we created in 2 or 3 years about 10 funds. All the funds were in the size of more or less $25 million, where in each of them we were invested in $8 million, which was 40%. And we also sat on the investment committee of these funds and helped the funds to find companies in order to start the activity of venture capital. What happened after a few years was, I'm shorting, of course, the way because there are a lot of stories around it, but what the result was that after 5 years, 8 out of the 10 funds exercised an option that we gave at the beginning to our investors to buy our share from the funds. So in this way, they showed that the funds were successful because they brought from home about $10 million to buy us back. The investment was $8 million, but the buyback was $8 million plus interest. So they had to put $10 million and buy our shares. But 8 out of the 10 funds not only bought our shares, but made a lot of money because their funds were luckily enough to return much more than $10 million that they had to put to buy us out. And this was considered to be a great success because it's 80% success of the funds. But what we had noticed later is not only the fact that we had now 10 funds active in the market, but also the fact that because we were partnering with foreign partners in big markets like US, Europe, and even the Far East, it built by itself a kind of a network, because when you are a partner in a fund, you want the fund to succeed. So you look at the companies in the fund, try to take them overseas, try to take them to IPOs, try to find partners for them. So you start to be involved from the distance for the success of these companies. So I believe that at that time, with the establishment of these 10 funds, not only we created the infrastructure for venture capital for the future, but also we created a network, or we facilitated or accelerate the creation of a network. So this was the story in short. It was between 93 and 98 that we were active, which means that after 5 years since we started, we in a way privatized the company because we saw there is no need for the government anymore. And after that, we became just a private fund invested in Israeli companies. We did 2 more funds. We were most successful in one of the funds, in the other one not so. But this is the life of venture capital. When sometimes you succeed, it depends when you invest, depends on the timing and so on. Today, I will show you the numbers, but Today, as you can see, there is a very strong ecosystem for venture capital for technology investment in Israel. As you can see from this pyramid, we have all the stages for investment in companies from seed, even pre-seed, up to the pre-IPO. In all these stages, you have investors in Israel, many funds, today, many more than in this slide. Most of them are even non-Israelis, because Israel was very attractive after we started, after 5-10 years, because of the success. And many investors, and especially venture capital funds from all over the world, are investing now in Israel, including corporate funds and corporate venture funds. So this one shows you the success. I can tell you that some of the companies that we invested in through the funds made more than 10 times the money. The best was, I think, 14 times the money. So the government, because of the process, as I described before, was bought out, made about 30% return on its investment. Yes, so this is the story about Yuzma. Now I just want to show you what's happened in the last 10 years. It's long after we started. As you can see, the status now is that we invested over 40 billion in more than 4,000 companies in all those 10 years. Exit was about $112 billion. We have now about 100 companies traded in NASDAQ. 11,000 companies were created in these 10 years. More than 2,000 investors are active in Israel worldwide. We have many accelerators and incubators. When we started, there were only 24 that were created by the government. But now we have private, all of them are private and assisted by the government, by the way, but managing by private people. And we have many active multinational companies, which is a separate story. You know, the Israeli technology or the small companies were very attractive to big conglomerates, which came to Israel after we started in the mid-90s and explore for technology and started to buy small Israeli companies. And today, most of these active multinational, I would say, came to Israel by acquiring a small Israeli company, keeping it in Israel, continue to grow it, and using it as the research hub. Only, as you can see, only in 2019, we had a record of investment. Funds raised $8.3 billion, and the company, the company raised from funds $8.3 billion. And I would say that most of the money is non-Israeli money. Most of the money that is invested in Israel, I think about 85 to 9% is foreign money. Not only the foreign investors come with foreign money, but also the local funds are raising the money from foreign investors. So the local funds are funding by 85% of foreign money. Next. This year is a strange year, as you know. We are all facing the pandemic of the COVID, but the sad thing is that the technology industry, or the startups, as you call it, is very strong this year. We see more investments in companies than we saw last year. I think we will have a record investment this year, also by fundraising and also by going public by Israeli companies. We have at least 20 companies which are more than $1 billion in value. Some of them started to go public, and I believe that this trend will continue as long as the market is strong. And this phenomenon is not only for Israel. I also saw that in the US, also this year will be considered as a record year because the companies raised about $70 billion. On the other hand, we see there, and also we see in Israel, less number of companies that the money was invested, which means that investors like to invest in technology, although it's a bit risky, but they rarely invest in startups. They are going later stages. So if in 2018 the investment was in 250 companies 450 companies. This year is half the number. So that's something which we have to look carefully because small companies or seed companies have problem to raise money this year. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's impressive, Yigal, what happened at the beginning and what has happened since the beginning till now. I think that you have to be a very happy man because you have done something incredible. And now the question is, a lot of years have gone through, a lot of countries all Latin America wants to build ecosystems that are strong and that are active in creating new startups and sparkling innovation. So have you had any experience of you helping other countries create or do something similar, compare what you did in your own country?
Yes, after we showed the success of the funds, it started to be spread over in some countries in the world, and people from governments of different countries started to come to Israel to ask how it was happened and what are the secrets of this success. And I started to be a kind of advisor to some of the countries and be more involved with what happened there. It started, by the way, with New Zealand. New Zealand was the first one that I went there, and together with the government, Ministry of Development there, we started a fund similar to what we did here. They wanted also to do a partnership with other partners from the world. It was difficult for them to get partners from US and far distance places, but they succeeded to do it with Australia and with the closer community. And I can say they started very small, but today they are very successful. The government still funding the funds. I think they have the government invested since then about $200 million in local venture capital funds. Many of them are with joint venture with other funds, and some of them are very local. This was New Zealand. After that, I was also in Russia, which is a different story, of course.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted also to strengthen the venture capital, which they have very vague there in the country, but the government at that time decided to put $1 billion for this purpose and create a fund of funds like we did in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with them about 4 years, and then I decided to stop because it was going to a different ways. But I believe that they still invest a lot of money, although their position today, the financial position is less good than it was then. But they still spend a lot of money on venture capital as a government. I had also with some other countries, but these are the big stories. And the last one, which is the big story, is South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And South Korea, it's a big success for us. I hope it will be also a success for South Korea, because it's very difficult, let's say, to do it in other countries. And South Korea is a special country. I don't know if you have the slides, Alexandro, you can show about Korea. I have some slides which are in the presentation.
Can you see it, Yigal, there, the slide?
Yeah, after continue the presentation that you showed.
Can you see the slide?
I cannot. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, here I see it now. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just a very interesting story, because it's still working, and I tell you what's happened there. You see first the synergetic opportunities between Korea and Israel, because Korea is a big country in manufacturing capability. They know how to make industry. The problem they have is that they have no startups, no new ideas created. So they are very eager to learn how to do it, and try to do it in a program which more or less was similar to what we did, but was not exactly, because the lack of I would say kind of entrepreneurial spirit that we have in Israel. So it's more difficult there. This is one reason which was difficult for them, and the other one was the fact that they are I think by what they want is to be more isolated from the world. So they're not so cooperative, let's say, in this world. Next. So we decided to do a partnership with South Korea. It started when I met some Korean guys, and they seems to be very eager to start something like Yosma in Korea. So they started in 2015, as you can see, by creating the accelerators, or kind of incubator accelerators, because the Korean government, which put a lot of money, by the way, in the technology industry, I think #1 in the world is now, they support very much the accelerators. So there was money coming in, which facilitates to these guys to create the accelerators in Korea. So they started to grow by doing this accelerator. Next one. And now they are investing. So they become an investor in Korean, not only in Korean companies, but also in Israeli companies. So as you can see, they invested so far close to $90 million in 25 companies. Most of them are in the medical field, like healthcare and bio, and some of them in ICT. And the next one will show you that, as you can see, they invest in many Israeli companies as well. So Korean companies and Israeli companies, and the reason that they invest in Israel, because they don't have enough good opportunities in Korea for investment. And the fact that we are connected and the Korean have money to invest outside as well, create this kind of distribution between Israel and Korea. In the future, I believe they will go more for Far East countries like Singapore, China, Philippines, and others. This is not relevant, but if you, I can talk about this. This is about not Korea. This is about Israel, by the way.
Okay.
But just because you show it, I can say one word about it. One word is just to show you the kind of technology that are used in different fields in Israel. You can see the artificial intelligence is the most used in different fields, also IoT and sensors and also robotics. As you can see, in Israel, the companies are using, and this is one secret of the ecosystem and the success, when you have people which are educated to do it and are in the first line in the world, you can use them in companies and create good companies in the top priorities of the technologies in the world now.
These numbers are impressive. And now, why don't we why don't we think, or you help us think about our future? We are in the Southern Cone. We have built, or we have started to build ecosystems in some of the countries of the Southern Cone, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile. The VC industry has started, it's in the beginnings. And I want to ask you, Yigal, which is your advice to build a prominent VC industry, or what would you do here to make, or to build a prominent VC industry to help our entrepreneurs?
I think I have a slide. I don't know if you still have it.
Yeah, the one of the ecosystems?
Yes, just to show what is needed, and I want to say a few words about it.
Here. So, okay. Can you see it?
Now I can see it, yes. So ecosystem, as you know, we see it here, is different building blocks that you need to have in order to be successful. But this is not coming, I must say, this is not coming by a plan which was, planning by the government or anybody else to do all these steps. Some of this come by itself because of the need. So the government has a very strong role in pushing the whole process by incentive, by tax plans, and so on. And the government of Israel was very supportive for creating this area of technology investments. And because we started, and when we started Yuzma, not only Yuzma was established, but the need immediately rise for legal and accounting infrastructure. So today you can find many legal firms and accounting firms that have not only the knowledge, but have good connection with the world players. But of course, you need good people. Without good people, you cannot what we call high quality human resources. People who are knowing how to use technology for new ideas. Of course, entrepreneurial culture, people that want to create, that want to do something by their own and want to push it for a success, it's very important. Universities are very important because you have to commercialize the know-how from university to industry. Here, there is I would say, a barrier which government should assist in order to come over it. And of course, what we were luckily succeeded is the strong presence of major multinationals.
Mm-hmm.
These multinationals not only help you with the money that they come with and they employ many people, but also by creating a potential of spin-off for people to start their own ideas. So you can find many good people, Israeli guys, that went out from this company, start their own company. So when you have all these ingredients, you can say that your ecosystem is perfect. But if you don't have, sometimes you can use others. But it's better that you, in time, see that all these ingredients are existing in order to be independent and successful.
Okay, so we can see here that it's not just a matter of money, it's money and besides other things. So I want to ask you. You were the head of the Israel Venture Association in some years. Now there are venture capital associations and private equity here in Argentina, and Uruguay, and Chile. Which is the role of these associations? What do you think about the role that they should have?
Well, I can tell you what I did. I was one of the founders of the association because before there was no venture capital, and also the first chairman. So what I thought the best or important to do for this association first was to create a kind of collaboration. You know that these people competing each other. So we tried to create an environment of cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that if we, especially if we work with foreign countries, foreign people, it's better that we will exchange, knowledge and experience. So we started to do meetings and this type of things which association do from time to time. But what was more even important was the fact that there was a need to convince the government of the importance of this sector. And I myself spend a lot of time to change some critic laws, about taxes and how you treat this sector in the industry. As an example, we had to take off the capital gain tax from foreign investor, which was there at that time. It was impossible to work with this. So it took time, but we as a lobby, we started to be a lobby. We created the tax authority to change it. Also the value-added tax, which was a burden for the industry. We came into arrangement with this authority that the funds can work in a normal order. And the carried interest, which is the most important for the people who were doing venture capital, was not in line with what happened in the US or other countries. So we had to change it to give the more incentive to the managers of the funds. And they were happy, and it came only with kind of lobbying on the government and very hard work to convince that this sector is important. I believe that no one is regretting now because everyone sees that we were right to say that this sector is going to be one of the most important in the Israeli economy, which it is. Even save us now in COVID time, export is going down.
Okay. The last question, Yigal, because we have, I think that 5 minutes left. So I would love to tell us if you were living here and you were at the beginning of the process of creation of the ecosystem and the VC industry, which would be the 3 things that you would do now?
Well,
it's a
well,
dream.
I must tell you, Sandro, I must tell you a short story. Then I went to New Zealand. I told you about it, and I was asked the same question by.
I am not being original.
I don't know if it was in television or not, but I was asked the same question, and I told them, look, if you give me good money and a good place in New Zealand, there are many nice towns, small cities.
Yes, a lot of times, yes. That's
so I want to see it, to have a kind of a home near the lake, a nice salary, and I can promise you I will not work. And the problem of New Zealand was because they have a style of life that venture capital is not exactly what they need.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that in your country is much more important. And I would say that the first thing I would take care of is to see what is the potential for investment. who are the companies, what type of companies you have, how they are emerging, who are the entrepreneurs, in order to be focused on kind of incentive that you have to get afterwards, whether it's from the government or any other source, to focus on kind of sectors or people that you want them to be successful. And many countries, I think, make the mistake of thinking about venture capital without thinking about where the venture capital is going to invest. And sometimes you invite, foreign funds to your country, and that's all in many cases. You invite them to your country and they come and say, okay, it's very nice, but where are the companies? Why should we come? If we don't have enough companies and you do have some funds, we have to compete on the good ones. So it's not, for us, it's maybe not so good. Mm-hmm. So you need to have enough companies that can attract this type of investment. Yeah. Focus first on this. See how you can increase with local resources. And then I believe that you can find more outside resources. But that will be the number one that I will see. Education.
Universities have a role there, I think, no?
Yes. The second thing that I wanted to say, the second thing is universities, but it's not only universities. What we call, is we call it a deal flow. Where are the companies coming from? Where are the ideas coming from? So universities is number one, of course, but still you need to take care of the university in order that they will understand that it's not only for research sake, but also for commercialization sake, in a way.
Yeah.
So you have to do it, and that's, again, government with money can do it. But it's not only universities. There are more sources for starting new companies, new ideas. As an example from Israel, the defense institutions are very, is a good supplier for such things. Also, spin-off of big companies, as I said before, is a good, you can find a way how to incentivize people to leave the companies and start a small one. And also repatriate, if you bring back people that are successful in the US or other markets, it can be good for the local industry. So you have many things that you can think, it's even more than three things, which are important to create a
deal flow. Yeah. Okay. So Yigal, it is 39 minutes, 24 seconds. So we have been very, very punctual. It's a great pleasure, as always, to talk to you. I hope the next time we talk live after the pandemic goes away. So thank you, Yigal, for this conversation. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Alexander, for inviting me. It was a pleasure for me too, and I hope the pandemic will go in less than 1 year, so we can meet and have fun and other things.
Here or there? Okay.
Yeah.
Ciao, Yigal. Thank you.